use best practices for access and usability. So why don't you explain that one to us?
Yeah, absolutely. And there are just a couple of issues here that you can use to scan a website, and you can get online and look for these. But what you want to do is make sure that your website is working for most types of users. And this can be this can range from anywhere to differently abled users. So using alt text on images is a real basic thing for people who are maybe vision impaired and are using a different type of interface than most other folks are using. And so using the basics, and this is kind of in that realm of something to ask your web developer about. So it gets kind of technical, but you
Could
just
it be something also like contrast on a page? Like
Yep.
if there's not enough contrast between text and background color or something like that?
Yeah, and then a phrase that, so I worked with an agency for a couple of years, Immersion Active, and something that David Weigelt was always really passionate about there was that it's not, their focus was older consumers or sort of the baby boomer market, and they would say it's not about big fonts. It's not that simple. Instead, they would focus on universal design. So universal design is, can anybody get to this page and kind of function and do what they're trying to do? And so using the online tools for running a scan for either HTML compliance or ADA, Americans with Disability Act compliance, those are going to give you some basics, and they might highlight some lesser known problems that can become flat red flags for search engines. So when you've got a Google core update, sometimes they're just saying, well, how do we decide who's best and who doesn't have a good website? They've got some big categories that they can use, and sometimes these scans pick up things that are basically just usability problems on the website. So talk to your web developer and say, hey, is our website compliant with all of the different parameters for folks who are differently abled? And they'll say, well, I don't know, let me check. This is in that category of thoroughness when it comes to doing SEO, search engine optimization, or usability. But the basic principle is, if it doesn't work for a handful of folks, it's probably not working as well as it could for everyone. So usability and design, basics, being able to do things, font size, thinking about not having overlapping elements, not having any sort of archaic elements that are not really good coding. And those are things that you'll catch with mobile use. We've gotten away from having left sidebars on pages. They just don't flow well when you go to a mobile device, and so they're just, one column is pretty standard now. I would avoid falling into the trap of thinking that really big fonts are important for your audience. They might even be adjusting for that. You want to kind of aim for the mainstream and use just basic, good, solid, clean look and feel where you're trying to let people interact and do things functionally. Right. So using those scans like any sort of compliance, basically HTML compliance, you want to make sure that you're just using those and having your web developer run those, once or twice a year.
That's great.